I've heard that your church has a reputation for warmly welcoming visitors, and now I know firsthand that it's true. I'd like to thank you so much for welcoming me here to St. Andrew's today. In fact, the duty elder gave me a name tag to wear, so now I really feel like I'm one of you. In case you don't know me, I'm Mary of Magdalene, or you can just call me Mary Magdalene. As I wandered up the laneway today and I happened upon the front doors of your church, I couldn't help but be struck by the name you have chosen, St. Andrew's. I assume it's after my friend Andrew. And when I saw the capstone, Jehovah Jireh, the Lord will provide, wow, was I ever surprised. You see, we actually have a lot in common. For I know both Andrew and his brother Peter really, really well. I understand that you met Peter last week, right? So you now know that Andrew introduced Peter to Jesus for the first time. These two brothers were not just fishermen that I met at my hometown on the shore of the Sea of Galilee, but they are among the disciples that I accompanied when we traveled together with Jesus. And I can tell you that Andrew, Peter, and I would all agree with the capstone above your door. Without a shadow of a doubt, the Lord does provide. For Jesus provided a new way of life for each of us. Now, while I was waiting in the narthex and you were chatting with one another, I was leafing through your green directory. Did you know that there are a lot of people in this church with the same names? For example, I counted more than a dozen Jims and half a dozen Marys, including a Mary Margaret, a double Mary, and nearly as many Carols or Carolyns. So perhaps you can empathize with the confusion that has arisen because of my name. In fact, you will understand me when I say, unfortunately, I've gotten a bad rap because of my name. You see, I, Mary from Magdala, have been mistaken for somebody else. Perhaps another Mary, but we don't really know. After all, it's understandable because there are oodles of Marys where I come from. Of course, you've heard of Mary, the mother of Jesus, but then there's Mary, the mother of John, or James and Joses, and Mary of Bethany, who's the sister of Martha and Lazarus. And then there's Mary, the mother of John Mark, and I could go on and on. So perhaps it's not surprising that some people have gotten us mixed up. So if I may, I'd like to set the record straight. As no doubt you can tell from looking at me, I'm not the Mary with the long flowing hair, the one that anointed Jesus with expensive oil and wiped his feet with her hair. And I can assure you that I am not and have never been an immoral woman. Actually, what I'm known for is possibly far more significant than any of that. You see, at one time, I was known as the Mary who was possessed by 7 demons. Yes, that's right, 7 demons. There may not have been a legion of demons living in me, but certainly 7 demons was more than enough. As you might imagine, being possessed by demons was sort of a showstopper everywhere. Being possessed by demons was far worse even than being an immoral woman. For I was totally ostracized by everybody. I was an outcast. I couldn't go to the synagogue. I was always ritually unclean. I couldn't bathe in the ceremonial baths. And I couldn't even get a job. I couldn't participate in the life of the community. I had no friends and not even any acquaintances. I felt lonely and rejected, unlovable and unloved. But everything changed when I met Jesus, and this is my testimony to you. Jesus has made a difference in my life. As it happened, Jesus came through Magdalene one day to teach in this synagogue. On the way, Jesus caught sight of me, but he didn't see a crazy woman possessed by 7 demons. No, he saw me, the real me, the frightened, lonely, rejected person that I was. And right there, with such warmth and compassion in his eyes, Jesus had mercy on me and he healed me. Jesus looked right past the demons who were shouting his name, and he met my gaze, and he commanded the demons to leave me at once. And I can tell you that it was because of what Jesus did for me that I stand here in front of you today. I am a whole new person. My old claim to fame was that I was the Mary who was possessed with 7 demons. But my new claim to fame is that I am the only one of Jesus' companions whom Jesus healed. Yes, that's right. Me, a woman. The only close companion of Jesus whom Jesus healed. Can you imagine what this healing meant for me? It's very hard to put it into words. My chains were gone. At last I was set free. And I can tell you that after Jesus healed me, I've never looked back. I've never looked back. And why would I? The past is the past, and I can't change it. But Jesus has given me a totally new present and future, a new lease on life. It's like being reborn. I've made friends for the very first time in my life. I've gotten to know Mary, the mother of James and Joses. I've met Salome and become friends with Joanna, whose husband Chusa is an administrator in Herod Antipas's courts. I've bathed in those ceremonial baths in Magdalene like all the other Jewish women do. And I've been, for the very first time in my life, ritually clean. I've been able to get a good job. I'm not exaggerating when I say that my whole world changed the day I met Jesus. After I'd become established in Magdalene in my job, I quickly became a woman of means. I guess you could say I had a special knack for business. Because of Joanna's husband, I've made important connections in the Herodian court. Before I met Jesus, I had nothing, absolutely nothing. And since I've met Jesus, I've had financial resources, new friends, business contacts, and a friendship with him. My new friends and I started to hang out with Jesus and his disciples around the region of Galilee and be in Jesus' company as he taught and healed the sick and raised the dead and cast out demons. What a thrill it was to see Jesus in action, to hear his teaching, to see the interest that he showed in those whom society had discarded. And it's been my privilege, along with my other women friends, to provide for Jesus and his disciples financially so that they lacked for nothing while they shared the gospel. I felt so privileged to join Jesus' journey as he traveled from Caesarea Philippi down to Jerusalem for the Passover. Each precious day of this pilgrimage seems etched in my memory. As we journeyed, I began to realize something very important. I was not the only person that Jesus touched. I wasn't the only one to whom Jesus gave a radical restart. I will never forget the healing of the 10 lepers. Marginalized people, just like I was, cast aside through no fault of their own, I might add. They called out in a chorus of voices from the outskirts of the village, saying, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." Hearing their pleas, Jesus said, "Go and show yourselves to the priests." Jesus gave them hope that their prayers would be answered, and they had faith that he would heal them. And so they obeyed. Jesus said their faith had made them well. But I found it very sad that only one of them, one of the 10, a Samaritan no less, turned back to Jesus to say thank you. Then closer to Jericho, a blind man was sitting by the roadside begging, while Jesus and those of us in his entourage were passing by. The blind man, known by some as Bartimaeus, shouted, "Son of David, have mercy on me." When someone tried to shush him, he shouted even louder, "Son of David, have mercy on me." And Jesus once again saw him and had pity, the same pity that he showed to me and to the lepers. And he asked the blind man, "What do you want me to do for you?" I can remember we were all thinking, "Really, Jesus? Isn't it kind of obvious that a man who calls out like that wants to be healed?" And indeed, Bartimaeus said, "Lord, let me see again." And Jesus said, "Receive your sight. Your faith has saved you." And the blind man received his sight, and he joined us that were following Jesus and glorified God for what he had done for him. And finally, Zacchaeus sticks out in my mind too. Do you remember him? The wee man? The wee but rich tax collector who was hated by the Jews. He was seen as a traitor because he worked for Rome. So Zacchaeus was also one who was marginalized. Only this time he was rich and marginalized. He had the reputation for being a thief because he stole money from the people and took advantage of them because he was greedy. Zacchaeus was also in need of Jesus' healing from sin, healing from a series of poor choices and a selfish lifestyle that led him at the same time to be both wealthy and miserable. Zacchaeus, too, had something in common with the rest of us that Jesus healed. Like us, he was eager to be touched by Jesus. He answered Jesus' request to come down, to go to his home. I noticed that he made no comment about how his house was a mess or he had nothing to offer his guests to eat. He just wanted to be with Jesus. He wanted to change his ways, to repent and to make amends. And Jesus responded to the graciousness, and Zacchaeus responded to the graciousness of Jesus that was poured out on him. The grace that allowed Jesus to notice him in the crowd. Wee Zacchaeus, way up there in the sycamore tree. When Jesus called to him and invited him to come down from the tree, Zacchaeus came down. And as a result, he was changed. The touch of Jesus made all the difference in his life too. And so, brothers and sisters in Christ, followers of the way, may I take a few moments to encourage you in your relationship with Jesus. Perhaps today you are longing for a radical restart, just like we had. I'm here to tell you that what Jesus has done for each of us, he can do for you too. We have all experienced some brokenness in our lives, at one level or another. Life doesn't seem fair at times, and each of us has been hurt. Others have failed us, and we have let people down too. After all, hurt people, don't they? And if we're honest, sometimes it's actually looking at ourselves that brings us the most pain. In spite of our good intentions, we feel the burden of our own weaknesses and our secret sins that seem to cling to us. And often we feel the burden of regret. And so we spend our days wishing things were different or had turned out differently. We rehearse the past, we ruminate about our failures or the failures of others, and we remind ourselves of how we have not measured up. But I've come today to tell you that it is Jesus that can set us free from the past. We don't have to live there anymore. Jesus can restore our souls, like King David said. It is having a relationship with Jesus that makes all the difference. As I've come to know Jesus, the thing that stands out for me is his unconditional love, the love that he has for everyone that he meets. He sees each of us as unique and valued, and he loves us beyond measure. It was this love that first attracted me to Jesus. It was his loving gaze that recognized me as a child of God that resonated so deeply in my wounded soul. In fact, I thought that I would never forget Jesus' gaze. So knowingly and lovingly did he look at me. So much grace did he show to me. But little did I know that in the end, it was his voice calling my name, Mary. It was his voice that would give him away. But alas, I'm getting ahead of myself. Perhaps I'll be able to come and tell you the end of my story another day. In the meantime, when you get discouraged or you feel like giving up, please remember me, Mary Magdalene, and my testimony to you today. Get to know Jesus. Reach out to him. He's waiting for you. Jesus can make all the difference for you, just as he has for me. God's richest blessings to you all. Bye-bye.